Hey everyone, my name's Justin, though you might know me online as Gravisword, and welcome to Being Retro. Now for my second video, I wanted to share a little bit about myself with you. So, who am I? Well, I'm a Southern Ontario boy, lifelong Leafs fan, a retro tech and gaming enthusiast through and through. Now when I think back to how my computer journey started, it all started when my dad brought home a Texas Instruments TI 99/4A. But to be honest, it didn't get much use as a computer. I mean, we were a one television household, so it sat on top of the living room TV. During the week, the TV was controlled by my dad. Of course, I was supposed to be doing my homework, but I spent most of my time outside playing road hockey with my friends. So really, it came down to weekend time. And my weekends were pretty populated as well with playing outside with my friends, or going bowling as I went every week. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to enjoy the TI-99, but I managed to play a lot of Super Demon Attack, as that was the only software program at all that we had for the TI-99. And I don't recall seeing my dad touch it once. Now, soon after, we ended up getting a VIC-20. So my dad bought this little computer desk, brought home the VIC-20. Either he got the monitor or a TV. That part is fuzzy for me. But we had the tape drive and a few cartridges. And I gotta tell you, I played a ton of Radar Rat Race and Sargon Chess. So while I enjoyed the games, it still wasn't real computing. And again, I don't recall seeing my dad on that computer. Now that thing sat on a tiny desk in our kitchen, right on the edge of the kitchen and living room, so it had its own little space that didn't interfere with anybody. So I was able to use it at night and still not disturb anyone, either eating at the dinner table or watching TV. Although, of course, I had to keep the volume down. Now, when the Commodore 64 came out, my dad jumped on the Commodore 64, and that's where my real adventure started. Now this time, we had a proper Commodore monitor, and my dad got the disk drive, which was a huge game changer. I mean, I remember going to the local computer store, being able to buy a box of blank floppy disks, usually single-sided because they were cheaper, and then just use a hole punch to make them double-sided, double density. It was beautiful. And I remember taking them to school. I was in elementary school at the time, and giving them to my friends so they could copy their games for me, and even with teachers, getting them to make copies. And I remember when I bought games, whether it be one of my favorite titles, the Chiller from Mastertronic, with the original music that was unauthorized version of Thriller, or even box games like Battletech, Crescent Hawk, Inception. So I made sure that I contributed to the overall community and the communal gaming pool. So basically, by the end of my elementary school time, everybody had every game that was in that city, it felt like, which was great because there was no shortage of games to be playing when I wasn't outside and doing other things. And of course, we started buying those monthly magazines like Byte and Compute's Gazette and Compute and things like that. And I remember not only enjoying the articles and learning more about computing, but also typing in the programs that were commonly in those monthly magazines, and getting that program to work, and not only just being proud of myself that I was able to type it in, obviously, being not even a teenager at that point, but also trying to dig deeper into understanding what the language is actually doing. So BASIC I could understand, but I definitely had problems with the deeper languages that were in those magazines. And yes, I was able to make basic modifications, really just to the sprite, but not the code. I just couldn't make that leap at that age. And unbeknownst to me, my dad was taking basic programming classes at our local college. I guess that goes to show you that when I was out playing road hockey with my friends, I did not notice that my dad was at home. So, but the reason why he wanted to learn basic was he loved going to the racetrack, and he had everything up in his head as to how all the stats were weighted. So that way, when he got the programs every Friday, he would go through his calculations, and mark up each race as to how he should be betting. So once he learned how to program basic, he wrote a basic program that would allow someone, ended up being me, enter in the racetrack program data for every Friday's race, and sometimes Saturday if he chose to do both. Enter it in, and it would do all of its calculations and print out the results as to how my dad should be betting on those races. So yeah, every time I got home on a Friday afternoon from school, there was a racetrack program sitting on my Commodore 64 keyboard, and I would type it in, print it out, rip it off that dot matrix printer, and put it on the kitchen table. So that way, when my dad came home from work, he could get changed, grab the racing betting program, and also grab the printout and turn and burn, and he'd be gone. And thankfully, my dad won. He was very rewarding, not necessarily to me, but as a family. So when he won big, we got dishwasher, we got microwave, and more floppy disks and whatnot. So I definitely appreciate it about him. And in hindsight, when I look back, I guess my dad was a techie. He loved technology. He just didn't show it, and I didn't clue in on it. But I guess that's where I get my techie gene. So, and then funny enough, even though we were perfectly fine with the Commodore 64, as soon as the Commodore 128 came out, he immediately went out and bought it, and also a second monitor, one of the monitors that allowed for 80-column display. Because I imagine he had visions in his head about doing more computing himself, which is why he wanted the 80-column display, and potentially even the CPM mode. I never saw him use it, and when I used the Commodore 128, I kept it in Commodore 64 mode because I was playing games by that time. So unfortunately, the Commodore 128 dream and the Commodore dream in general kind of was put on pause when my parents divorced, as my dad kept the computer, and I didn't continue my computer journey until college. In the meantime, as a consolation prize for the divorce, since my mom couldn't afford much, she still was able to get me a Commodore, an Atari 2600 Junior. I get not the same, but it was during the crash, so the system was cheap, and so were the games. And we went to the local Kmart and stocked up on games. So it made do, connected to my black and white TV that I had in my bedroom. So it made do. So, and then, from a console perspective, well, the Atari 2600 was my first. The one that I really count as my first, but even though it is my second, is the Turbo Duo. And this, I ended up picking up the Turbo Duo when I worked at the local computer store in the Metrotown Mall in Burnaby, British Columbia, called CompuCenter. And they had a policy of, if we wanted to buy hardware, software, or whatever, we purchased it at what the store paid for it. So at the time, the Turbo Duos were on clearance, effectively. They weren't advertised as being on clearance because Radio Shack still had the Turbo Graphics 16. So each store was allocated 2 units, and they were stickered at $199 because that was the SRP at the time. But our store price was $5. So I didn't want to be greedy and buy both, but I did buy one. And I bought one of each of the games that we had, including the awesome Dragon Slayer and amazing Lords of Thunder. And I still listen to that game purely for its soundtrack. It's awesome. The only thing that wasn't discounted to that $5 were the Turbo Express and its accessories. So, which is unfortunate because I was hoping that would have been discounted too, because that was a system that I had my eye on as well. And then from a console perspective, sorry, fly. That continued with, getting Dreamcast and my daughter and I playing the heck out of Sonic Shuffle, the original PlayStation, original Xbox, and, we've been buying every console generation ever since. Now, when I think about computers and consoles, those have been great. But I also want to talk about kind of my first real accessory that I bought, and that was the Gravis Ultrasound. Now this is a sound card that I've read about in computer magazines. The people who worked at Advanced Gravis, which was also located in Burnaby, British Columbia, would come into the store to buy games and whatnot, so I established a relationship with them, and I would call them probably every week, maybe every 2 weeks, getting an update status as to when the ultrasound is going to be off the production line, because I wanted to buy one of the first ones off the line, and indeed I did, because they did build them there in Burnaby, BC. So that nice, awesome red PCB was just like something as simple and little as that kind of blew me away as well. I was that impressionable, but it earned it. And coincidentally, Gravis Lord, that's my name, is based on my love for the Gravis Ultrasound, and fun fact, I ended up going to work for Advanced Gravis as well. So it was a mix of both. And then fast forward a few years, or many, many years, depending on what you count as years, I watched this amazing documentary called From Bedroom to Billions, The Amiga Years. And when I watched that, something just clicked inside me. The passion, the energy of everyone involved with the Amiga. It just blew me away. It reminded me of everything that I loved. It brought back all those childhood memories. But also, it showed me what I had missed because of my parents' divorce. That was the end of the Commodore journey. And I was right there because we had the 128. So it just made me want to go back and start building my collection and digging into the history and learning as much as possible. And from a collecting perspective, much to my bank accounts and wife's chagrin, I started collecting a lot, both locally, North America, worldwide. Nothing stopped me from getting more hardware and software for my collection. So that's just a little bit about me. I imagine in future videos I'll share more and more about myself. I do live streams, gladly answer questions, all that kind of stuff. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by Being Retro. I've got a lot more stories to share, so stick around and let's dive back into the past together. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.